Hello friends, welcome back to the Deeply Graphic Design Cast. I'm Nick Longo, your host. I just got back from Austin, Texas, attending the Crop Conference. Oh my gosh, what a few days. You could tell by the sound of my voice. I maybe did too much talking, too much partying, and it's taking its toll now. So we'll have more on that in a future episode. So many new creative friends that I've met over the last 3 days and really want to bring them on the podcast in future episodes to talk about their stories. It's an incredible opportunity, and I just love getting to go out to any conference at this point. It's such a great change of pace for your daily kind of and weekly routines. But today what we're going to do is I'm going to share with you a presentation and conference talk that I did all about packaging. And for many years, I've kind of talked on packaging, and it's the one thing I love to do, the most. I teach it. I probably do 80% of my business is all in packaging. But there was one missing element, and I realized no one was really talking about something that was almost a gatekeeper in the industry. And as designers, we never get that exposure. And that's the retail buyer. That's the person that's actually buying the product from the manufacturer and bringing it into their stores and on their shelves. And in so many cases now, with the rise of these incredible, high-end grocery stores, these high-end bodegas, these like boutique-style food and beverage shops that have been popping up all over the place, that role of the retail buyer is so vital. And why don't we have any exposure as to what they're looking for when it comes to successful or not successful branding and packaging and everything that goes in between? So I went out and I went to about 20 different retail buyers. They all were anonymous because I don't think any of them really wanted to share who they were and what company they were for. And I was glad that that was the case because I think I got some really incredible insight on what works and what doesn't when it comes to packaging design. So I really hope you enjoy this one. There's a lot of incredible visuals along with this. So if you are only listening in the audio format on Apple and maybe a few other ones, I really encourage you to get on either the Spotify one or go to our YouTube channel. It'll be down in the links as well, and watch it so you can get the video companion of this because there's a ton of great visual reference as well. So I hope you guys enjoy this. We'll see you next time. Hello, everybody. My name is Nick Longo. I'm from Longo Designs here in Los Angeles, California. So for myself, I'm a brand and packaging designer. I work with primarily food and beverage companies. And one thing I've noticed is we've really kind of done a lot and talked a lot about designing, obviously, first for our client, making sure they understand what we're doing. Secondly, the consumer. That's the ultimate decision maker, right? But there's a space in between. And it comes up every once in a while in these conversations with my clients. And that is the retail buyer. And they're this like silent little player in the middle of our entire equation. And they're the make or break. They're the ones that like, yes or no, this will go on the shelves or not. And I've gotten feedback from a lot of retail buyers telling me certain things about the design at hand that we were kind of trying to get in, but we're not even talking to them. We're not even like having a conversation to find out. And if anything, that's the biggest like disconnect when it comes to what we do and how do we get it into the marketplace. So I've wondered all this time, what makes them decide on what products make it or break it? This is going to be like a complete eye-opening talk and pulling back that curtain on them and their trade secrets and the ones that we get and we got shared from the retail buyers that we talked to. These are insights that every designer needs to know, I think, before designing their next project and their next brand design for packaging and anything that's going to be consumer-based. So what if you can get inside of the mind of a retail buyer? These are the gatekeepers who decide which brands make the cut and which ones actually just don't get into those stores. So it's kind of an investigative style session that I wanted to do, seeing what secrets they have shared by these retail buyers. So the goal, I just wanted to dive deep into these and see what trends they are loving, what they're hating. And we also want to share some insights on how leveraging unique print designs, applications, techniques, materials, finishes, all those great stuff to help elevate that packaging and make it stand out. This is actionable concepts and unique insights that come straight from the people who influence the consumers and what they see. Whether you're working kind of in the indie food space or if you're in these established CPG brands, this session will help kind of like arm you with the knowledge to create the packaging that wows the buyers thrills the clients, and then sells the products. So the backstory here too, retail buyers are these gatekeepers. They decide what makes it onto the shelves, yet the designers get to rarely get the direct access from these folks to know what's working and what's not. So we're going to get in a little bit into that a little bit more, but I do want to show you a little bit of something that I put together. This is a disclaimer because the insights here are purely shared in this presentation, and they're based on the direct conversations that I've had with these retail buyers. They reflect their personal opinions and the experiences that they're finding in the industry. This does not mean that any design that we discuss here is bad. It just simply may or may not have met the strategic, commercial, or logistic expectations that the buyer was looking for at that moment when they were selecting products for their shelves. So our goal here is to provide designers with an inside look at the decision-making process so they can create packaging that not only looks great, but also instills that confidence in the buyers and gets products to sell into the stores. So my first question I asked them was very, very simple. It was a long one, but it was simple. When evaluating new products, how much weight do you place on the packaging design compared to the product itself? What elements of packaging immediately catch your eye, and what makes you want to learn more about the product? So some of the stuff that I got was very interesting. Here's some feedback directly from one buyer. Initial evaluation. Packaging is the first thing assessed. Everything, color, type, the box, the pouch, the can, whatever it comes in. That overall appeal, there's going to be a quick yes or no decision. There's no time spent here. It has to be very quick, and buyers have an initial reaction to something for a yes or a no. She also said it's kind of a comparison to like dating apps, the idea of consumers judge these things so fast, and it's just as easy as swiping on a data app. So that decision-making thing is super quick. We want to give it our best bet. Deeper evaluation, she says that if packaging is appealing, attention-grabbing, and it shifts to product details and materials and desirable, that purchase is definitely intent and has a lot stronger of a chance to be found or to be purchased. There are key design factors, obviously color, fonts, the things that are catchy to the consumer. Those seem to be some of the biggest influences, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into that as well. And then there's category-specific considerations. Packaging expectations vary by the industry, just like health and beauty and things like that. Think of the industry that your product is in and what specific things have to be there to really help highlight those benefits. This one retailer came back with some stuff. He said information clarity. Once a consumer engages, typography and content and layout become critical for conveying that information. Bad product, good packaging. He said that many times a great package is awesome, but that could start the sales, but a poor product prevents repeat purchases, hurting the brand in the long term. Next up is retailer expectations. Retailers prioritize products that sell consistently. They want to avoid slow-moving inventory. That's common sense, right? But if you think about it as well and say, wow, I want to design something for consistency, thinking that way alone just might be a huge game changer in the designs and the stuff that you create for your clients. And lastly was retailer resistance. Retailers often reject unconventional packaging in the past, but now they seem to be embracing it with the success of things like Liquid Death being water in a can. That was, a totally different spin. So sometimes this kind of consumer demand, if something has really done great, that will force the adoption in the future. This one retailer had a great comment. Packaging is everything. It's the gateway to the product. She says that 60% of her decisions are truly influenced by the packaging, with the rest being on the product itself. Because if you think about it, you can't taste every single thing that's in the store, right? That would be maybe a choice, a decision maker on if you're deciding on something or not. So where does it all fall on? It falls on the brand, the design, and the packaging, and that has to do it. So some of the ones that she wanted to highlight as well, love these ideas. You got everything from, she said packaging carries 50% of the weight in her decision making. For wines and spirits and beers, these kind of stood out when she looked at different elements. Number one, premium materials like foil stamping or textured labels, and you can see that in this one here as well. Secondly, unique bottle shapes and things that are innovative for, like, think of wax dipped tops for craft spirits and things like that. And lastly was heritage storytelling. Does the label or the box or whatever evoke sophistication or craft? And where you get to kind of show that off is the storytelling, is maybe some of the clever copy that's written on there as well. Number 2, what design trends are you currently seeing in the food and beverage packaging that you love? And are there any trends that you think are overdone or ineffective? And wow, did we get a lot of response for this particular question? Because I think, again, these are not trends. These are just more like, are there particular elements that really do stand out? I mentioned trends to the buyers so I can really get some richness, and it would help them maybe answer the questions a lot better. So some of the ones they said, she says, I love colors. I love big, unique fonts. Some brand packaging or refreshes that she's seen that come to mind include this one here, which is Popcorn for the People. Really, really cool. I love that one. I'd never seen that one before. Looks really, really cool. We've all seen the Poppy brand. They've kind of reinvigorated the beverage market by creating kind of functional and more healthier sodas. Now they're being, heavily copied all over the place. But look at what they did. They gave it big, bright, fun colors, unique kind of personality in their fonts. The last one she mentioned here was the Flings. This is kind of like a toaster strudel competitor as well. There's a sense of excitement, joy, and fun in all three of these. And she really wanted to reiterate that idea that this is something really cool. There's an attempt here to give the buyer, to give the particular consumer, this sense of fun, joy, and excitement in all of these brands. Another good trend they found was this throwback to nostalgia. And this nostalgia and vintage has such you can't even call it a trend anymore. It's just an aesthetic, because it does kind of go back to simpler times, and it makes you reflect and think of something from the past, which is like a good thing. So she loved a lot of these vintage fonts and colors like you see here on the left. Beautifully done. This was a great one that Olipop did for more like social media and things like that, but it was a way for them to play in that world as well. Secondly, she mentioned transparent windows, showing the product inside. That sense of authenticity sells well. And she found that this was becoming another little area of success when the brands show off their product through a window, or like the top one there, through a glass jar. Some other good trends they found was when the brand being more natural or more eco-friendly or maybe more simplistically based and less ingredients, they found that these illustrations and things that were very artisanal throughout the brand packaging made it more trustworthy. Some bad trends they found. This was interesting. They talked a little bit about the Gen Z, particularly the Y2K kind of movement that they saw in so many things. And this is where they see it as a trend that has a time limit. Like, this one just has a moment in time of success. And it's so distinct now of its style and its aesthetic that it kind of lost its steam very quickly too. So they were trying to say this idea that, yes, it's great, but if it's already gone, do not adopt that kind of, that kind of look, and do not adopt that as a kind of like moving forward with a brand. They found that collabs and like limited edition stuff for brands worked really well in here, but no one's truly succeeding in this look for long-term as their core brand. Again, it worked better in collabs. It worked better with things that were a little bit more seasonal and wanted to make an impact quickly. So it was kind of interesting to hear that as well. Another bad trend they thought was this idea of too much minimalism, like to the point where, it's almost like, what's going on? There's not a lot here to even help me make my decision. She said that there's very much exceptions to this rule. They have certain brands that are very minimal and doing quite well. But when it gets too far to the point like this packaging becomes so stripped back that it loses character and it feels generic. And these tend to be higher price point items in most cases too. So this idea that it's feeling generic, it's lost some character, and it has a very high asking price, no one was buying it. So just an interesting insight from them as well. Another bad trend, like I mentioned, we got a lot in this particular question. She said that there's just too much greenwashing. And by this, it's just any product trying to fall into the green, eco-friendly, sustainability bucket is doing it all the same. And by greenwashing, meaning it's just like everything has greenwashing. This was just a greenwashing search in Pinterest, and you can see it already knows that this is a trend happening. And some of these brands, you can pinpoint a few here that are probably doing quite well or doing good. But as a whole, they thought this emphasizing nature benefits, eco-friendly, all natural, whatever it was, if it is not backed up with evidence, meaning there's some proof of the advancement or the benefit you get with this product, it fell flat. So good to know as well. She also wanted to mention too, excessively loud designs, particularly in the premium categories of whatever it might be. They were starting to kind of cheapen the product. So people thought because it was maybe a very expensive one, and it's very premium in that way, that they can go extremely loud. And again, exceptions to this rule, but when it gets too much to the point where it's so loud and it's just kind of chaos, that it could cheapen the product, and then again, matched with the price point, there's a disconnect, and the consumers were just not going for it. So something to consider if you're in that zone. All right, the next question. Number 3, how far can a brand push boundaries with unconventional or daring packaging before it risks alienating the client? Can you share some examples of bold design that has worked and a few that haven't? So first one they found, I had never seen this one, and I just fell in love with it like the minute I saw it. It's called Fishwife, and it is albacore tuna, smoked salmon, different things like that. And I believe they're in little tins, but they're in this box. It's a great example, she said, of bold packaging with a unique product. It's almost has this like graffiti-esque look. And while it's really busy, there's a quick read that instantly gets the point across of what this product is. So it has like that perfect match of pushing, but still telling in clear form what this is. She thinks there's a way that this might initially intrigue the potential buyer. And then the fact that it's got this beautiful kind of like commonplace vibe when you see all of them together. She mentioned that not only her, but some other retailers, when they bought into this brand, they didn't just buy the one SKU, they bought 3 or 4 because it really created a store within a store when this and maybe 2 or 3 other SKUs from this brand were next to each other on the shelves. So you can see the common thread here, right, in the way it's designed and how just the color and some other things change per SKU. She said it did so great because of its uniqueness, but again, it's very easy to understand what it is. This was another one she brought up, saying that this unconventional thing will work if it's done right. And if it comes from the brief, it comes from the target that you want. If you wanted the super minimal, clean vibe, right? How else can you do it? Maybe bringing in color, and the colors of the rainbow could be your solution. And the example here she showed was Sodas of America. This is very simple and super effective, the way she said it. Again, it creates that store within a store. This is all one brand, even if you have 12 of them lined up next to each other. Some other positive things where they push the boundaries is the vessel itself. What is your product coming in? And is it different or unconventional to what we're used to? Liquid Death, putting water in cans, right? Right there off the bat. We talked about that earlier, how at first it was weird, but the consumers loved it, so everybody is adapting to it. I think even before that, the box water account, that was even different. That was putting water in the box. Notice both of those are not in plastic, and we'll talk about that in a second. Graza, not only did they do the typical one where they put it in the squeeze bottle with the little twist top on the top, that was unconventional, but even more conventional was what they put their refill in. They want you to keep that bottle, but the refill comes in this can. And again, you've never seen olive oil in a can. So these unconventional packaging vessels were so unique and cool, and it made people kind of like take a look. It stood out, and it definitely looked totally interesting to them, to the point where they would try it. And of course, all 3 of these huge success stories in the industry. Some other positive ones they mentioned here as well. This idea of putting bold work out there, really fun. These cartoonish styles and these kind of like comical things that have a brand voice that are totally different. She said some of these really related well with people. And 2 examples here, a Magic Spoon and the Grown Ass Mac. One thing she loved was she found adults were buying these because they tapped into, again, nostalgia, cereal and mac and cheese, but they created them in a more adult way. These have good benefits, particularly Magic Spoon. It's got great macros, it's high in protein, it's low in carb. The grown-ass mac one as well, they did it with unique kind of more grown-up flavors with truffle oil and different things like that. But there was a throwback to nostalgia and being a kid, but also being an adult. So this idea of how they pushed it and almost made kid-friendly packaging, but geared more towards adults, was a huge success. And again, both of these brands doing absolutely well in most of the retail spaces that we talk to these people with. Some other positives was this idea of using bold and innovative things that are very intentional. Both of these using holographic foil was a unique thing to really not only stand out amongst the competition, but to create a certain playfulness there as well. When they're in stores and the way the lighting can kind of, reflect off these things and grab your attention. Both done in a totally different way, but super tasteful. One of my participants in this, he's in the craft beer space as well and does a lot of buying for that, in particular bottle shops and things and different retailers that carry craft beers. And I had asked him specifically, because I'm in this space a lot, I said, what's not working? Because I really want to know. I don't know if you can really pinpoint what's working in that space because it's so different and so new. But he did have something that was very interesting about what's not working. He said overly flashy or overly comical ones might grab your attention, but there's a bit of confusion here because the premium beer market is not cheap, right? A 4-pack of these things can be anywhere from $16 to $20. And what he found was if it went over the top and was a little bit too overly flashy, the consumer kind of perceived it as a cheaper brand, then saw the price and didn't make the connection. And he mentioned there's a very nice kind of like happy medium between super formal and very classy and fun and cartoony. There are those kind of spaces in between where he's starting to see brands do really, really well at his different shops. This was another one. This is Alice Mushroom Chocolates. And it was so cool that this one buyer, when he brought it up, I had just seen it at a store. And I was confused. I didn't know what it was because you do not see the chocolate. These pictures show it. But if you just saw that, you would automatically think maybe it's breath mints, maybe it's kind of something, maybe it's gum, just because of that vessel. So here's where that doesn't work. Again, like I mentioned, there's exceptions to all of these different things. But where it didn't work was it was too small of a real estate where the text was too small. And he wasn't that confident that people would explore further when they saw this. It might have grabbed their attention. But if there wasn't a clear definition of what this is and what the benefit was, particularly at the price point, I can't remember what this, I think they were $20 to $30 per tin. So people just instantly were not drawn to it because they didn't know what it was. They saw a super high price and it was an extremely wrong situation. I think what he said was later on, they've created some in-store displays that help describe what it is now, and obviously using better images and photography. And by no means is this bad. I mean, it's beautiful, right? It's really aesthetically pleasing. But let's think about what the retail buyer is considering. Another spot where it kind of failed was this original bottle that was done by Blue Stripes. And this was cacao water, and it's water from like the cacao bean. And they were very ambitious and really, I got to say, that was quite brave of them of creating a whole new bottle. I'm assuming they had to manufacture that from scratch. That's a complete custom bottle to start with. But it was just a bit too weird. People did not attach themselves or understand and connect to the novel packaging that was presented here. So when they rebranded, the success has been over the top with this new one over here on the right. So sometimes trying too much, the buyer said, was a little bit overzealous and just didn't work. The next thing that they also wanted to say was a negative and to avoid was using overly edgy and combined with dark tones. There was something unique about some of these brands that were technically for like lighthearted snacks, like very just comfort food, right? Love the way that she put it. She's like, a lighthearted snack shouldn't be overly, thought out. Let's just make it simple, easy to get, and enjoyable to eat. Some of these she found just went straight to clearance because they were too dark and too overly edgy for a very lighthearted brand. So question 4, How important is sustainable packaging in your decision to stock a product? What advice would you give a designer trying to integrate eco-friendly materials without sacrificing aesthetics? I also should have put in there without sacrificing cost, because one of the things I've realized is when a client's really ambitious about doing anything in the eco-friendly world, we find out that, a lot of times it's too expensive to produce or manufacture because it's just not done in the volume that traditional simple printing or packaging is done. So they're usually met with a shock there when it comes to that. The one thing she's saying, though, is there's not currently a huge influence for her in stocking a product that really pushes eco-friendly or the sustainability. She thinks that there's enough consumers out there that are specifically looking for beverages that are not in plastic. They want them in cans and they want them in bottles. And this is kind of a way that people get to participate in it by making a simple decision. But the reality was, she says, people want the idea of sustainability, but there aren't many that will hold that principle too tightly that it will influence their decision on what they are buying. This one buyer wanted to point out, he mentioned that the best part of sustainability is when it serves a purpose to the consumer by either lowering the price or lowering the bulk, meaning the volume of it. And two examples are like concentrated cleaners and detergents and bar soaps that are becoming more and more popular. The reason here is there's less water, so it can ship and it's less weight, more concentrated, more usage. And that is a bit of a benefit to not only the retailer because of space on the shelves, but to the consumer because they can feel like they're participating in something that's sustainable. But actually, it's just a clever way to get it through there. And I love this idea because this could be something that you as the designer can offer to your clients to say, hey, here's a new trend. Maybe try doing a concentrated version of the cleaner that you make. There's super benefits to it, and retail buyers want to see this. Number 5, how much does storytelling matter in the packaging design you select? What are some ways designers can use visual and textual elements to effectively convey a brand's story? Oh, I love this one. We got into so many good ones, which is great. Okay, so this one retailer said to me, he goes, it matters 100%, especially in our store where there is no additional marketing materials or explainers. And by that, he means like in-store merchandisers or things. There's no room for that kind of stuff. There's no room for big kind of like shelf talkers that kind of give more benefit to the product that's right next to him. So he felt strongly that a packaging needs to stand out, look appealing, but clearly explains what the product is or its backstory or why they chose specific ingredients. He finds that a lot of times what brands are doing now is when they have a very unique ingredient offering in their things, they do have to kind of introduce it to the consumer with a little bit of emphasis. Oatly was a perfect example here. The way they take advantage of the 2 of the 4 panels and almost turn them into infographics. They're just like contagious. You just want to read them, right? There's so much fun stuff going on there. And then this other brand here on the right does the same thing where they show the process of how it's made. And the illustrations show the path and the ingredients and the care taken in there. And again, that's just helping not only the brand, but the retailer connect with the consumer. So the more you can do that kind of checks all the boxes, the better. These look appealing, they stand out, but more importantly, they tell the consumer what the product is. So this one retailer gave me a great line. Storytelling is everything. Being able to have a compelling case study that explains the decisions, sorry for the typo, and the reasoning behind the design elements. These considerations obviously take the brief in mind and bring it to life. You can see this beautiful packaging here does that by storytelling. It has a little bit like of a timeline there talking about the process of how they make their product. All these things, storytelling was a huge plus that most of these retail buyers really wanted to emphasize they were seeing a lot of. When I asked specifically about showing me some elements that work, these were some great brands that stood out. This is packaging that not only tells the story, but it embraces the personality of their brands. The Archer grass-fed beef jerky really does a great job of talking a little bit more about the brand, the ingredients, the flavoring. The backside has a lot of it there as well. Siete has been really on the forefront of this kind of like no seed oil thing. So they really tell that story on the front and the back. And then this was a really cool one. These Hydrostar pimple patches I thought was really, really cool. I've never seen this brand as well, but neat to see that a unique small boutique retailer brought this one up to me to say, like, just love the fact that they took something that's, you know, the last thing you want to buy, right? Acne products. But they did it in this fun, positive way that really encourages it. And young folks have really kind of gravitated to this brand. They think it just signals enough to the consumer that they're looking for a solution, but you can have fun with it as well. And I just love the fact that they were doing it such a great job, and a very unique packaging solution as well. Some other things here: storytelling is essential. Customers want to know the why behind the product. We've heard that so many times, right? The narrative-driven taglines, the copy that they write. Are they telling a story here? Are you incorporating graphics and icons with that subtle nod to the brand and what maybe their ingredients are, and giving these illustrations that have a quick read? Let's say you're doing like this Tribe protein bar here on the side. The fact that it's 100% natural, there's energy, maybe it's keto friendly, maybe it's plant-based, whatever it is. You can provide those quick read icons. Consumers are very used to those now, and that's a quick read. Remember, if we only have those 2 seconds, sometimes an icon and a series of icons can read much faster than a few bullet points of text. Question number 6. What are some common packaging design mistakes that you see from independent brands? How can designers and brands avoid falling into these traps? So one of the first ones, and this goes back to the minimalist or the ultra minimalist one we looked at earlier, they were mentioning, again, exceptions to this rule. This is just their opinion. But when we do things that are either full neutral plain color palettes or black packaging, they tend to not do well. There's a disconnect. There's this kind of like everything they look for now being fun, excitement, positivity, whatever it might be. This goes fully against it. So yes, there might be exceptions that you can find that are killing it out there in the marketplace. But as a whole, if they got something like these 4 she had mentioned, they might go back to the retailer and say, you might want to reconsider this before coming into our space. The other thing she mentioned too is that brands need to find their own route. She says it's okay to get influenced by the success stories out there, but we should not copy. And you know, that's a huge thing we all need to hear. I think I've been guilty of this a few times in the past, but nowadays I kind of like play off of the line. I want my clients and my brands to lead, not follow. So again, like, look around, get influence, see what's working, see what's not. Use a lot of this insight to help you out. But if you copy something so blatantly, you are just following. You are second place before you even entered the field. So she mentioned that as a huge part to kind of avoid. This one retailer gave me something. He said, make it clear what the product is and avoid an overload of text and just design elements that do nothing to help you find out what the product is. He said, people don't read. You only have 2 seconds to catch the eye. And, you know, we talked about that earlier. And to get them to understand the product is the first thing. Then comes the attitude, the vibe, the personality, the stories, and all that. But they got to know what they're looking at. And the 3 that he, you know, threw to me were these, because at first, you don't know what these are. And will we go past the 2-second mark to understand what they are? Here's another one. Most young brands focus too heavily on what they are and not enough on who they are. Almost everything we've looked at already, a lot of these examples, there's a who right off the bat, right? They're concentrating too much on what they are. And when it's what, you commoditize a brand very quickly. Particularly, they said, in this natural products space as well. Because again, if you do something that's like that greenwashing we looked at earlier, you're obviously saying what it is, but people really want to know who you are and why you exist. What benefit are you going to provide to me if I buy that? So that was an interesting little bit of insight as well. All right, question number 7. Based on your experience, what one piece of advice would you give designers who are working in the food and beverage area to make their packaging retail ready and irresistible for buyers like yourselves. We got such good content here. And of course, no one just gave me one. They gave me multiple, which I'm super thankful for. That was awesome. So packaging should be on trend, bright, unique, and clear. Yeah, all three of those. Like looking at some of the examples they gave me here, again, they have all the personality, all the funness, all the positivity, whatever it might be. Some go retro, some go a little bit more minimalistic, whatever it might be. But they're all bright, unique, and clear. And I think that's a great thing to kind of keep in mind, even in your discovery deck with your clients. And tell them that up front so we are not doing anything wrong. We are in line from the very beginning. It's a great, great kind of advice to live by. This was one that one of the buyers said, and he brought it up because he has asked a few of the really good selling brands in his store. If you don't mind, I'd love to know about your design process. What got you here? What gave you, how did you get to such a successful brand? Because it's doing quite well in our store. And a lot of them said the designer worked with them hand in hand with a mood board that has successful packaging. And most importantly, it identifies the key elements that you are hoping to get. So if your whole key element was, fun, exuberant, exciting, vibrant, all these different things, find the mood board, build that mood board with those things, get those key elements in there. If it's really important to discuss the ingredients and what their benefits are, find a mood board, put together a mood board of brands that do that very, very well. Then you replicate it in your own way. So building that case study, that mood board, or whatever it might be prior to designing is not just about the aesthetics, but it really is about features too. Packaging is so infographic, right? It's all informative. So find those little things that really work great, that you really want to emphasize in your branding and your packaging design. Show examples of it and get the sell-in with your client right from the very beginning. Here's a great one. You don't need to break the mold, but also find your own path. So again, it's kind of like not breaking the mold means there's something familiar there, but finding your own path means there's something unique and surprising. And that goes back to that Maya principle. That is exactly the definition of that. And so great words of wisdom here by this one buyer. Here's another one. Just stay true to the brand core values and work on telling a compelling brand story. If you have those fundamentals, your design will be easier to execute. Yeah, I mean, totally. I think I've been guilty of this too, building a great brand core value and everything. And then we start veering off into other areas because we're not staying to it. And I think our job is to be the person that puts the guardrails up to stay in that line, because if that's what's on the sales sheet and that's what's on all those things that you're communicating to the retail buyer, and then it's in the packaging, you're in line already. And I think it's going to help kind of sell it in even stronger. Love this one. This was given by a retail buyer, but it was by this gentleman, Frank here. People ignore design that ignores people. Gosh, I'm going to make a t-shirt of this one. It's so true. Some of the things we looked at that were kind of on the negative side, or the ones that just didn't work for some of the retailers, I kind of think that sums it up in a nutshell, right? Maybe they just kind of were ignoring people. They just did something aesthetically pleasing. But again, we have to address the consumer and that retail buyer. So the more we can do that, the better. Do more with less. Don't complicate packaging. Don't decorate. And yeah, been guilty of this many times. I just kind of like finalized a project where we're on hold now because we have gone so far past this time zone that it should have been. Other stakeholders have come into the picture from the client, and we were trying to fix it by applying Band-Aids to a design that just wasn't working for everybody. And when I saw that don't decorate, I was like, gosh, that's exactly what we were kind of doing for the last maybe 2 weeks. And that's why it kind of, is not successful. So I'm going to take this one to heart as well. Just a great lineup. This was just pure gold. The one buyer that gave me this, he said, have a few well-considered and crafted assets. And here are the examples. Number one is a beautiful word mark. And Chobani is, I think, such a great example of that. This thing's going to go forever. Like, there's no rebrand needed for this one for such a long time. A timeless rebrand, in my opinion. So you got that. You got your beautiful word mark. Next up, have a powerful brand icon. Monster Energy, great example. Again, there are exceptions because you can go right to Goodles, which doesn't really have a brand icon. They have a beautiful word mark, but they're getting away with just one. But the reason we're bringing them up is they have beautiful food photography. Again, giving a signature look, a signature vibe, whatever it might be, to the photography across the brand is a great common thread. And they do a great job with it, with the dripping cheese. Everything's on a fork, looks irresistible. Great job. Next up, number 4, a distinct brand color. Always try to get that across because primarily if you're working with a brand and it's going to go into tons of different brand extensions, having a core base color to apply to that brand, whatever it becomes years down the road, will help with brand consistency and storytelling. Bonza is a perfect example of it. Like if you go to a pasta-like area of a shop right now, I guarantee you, Bonza is standing out like crazy. It might look like a simple design and you say like, I could have designed that, in 10 minutes, but there's so much behind that. And the fact that it is a standout now in there and it has created a whole new area of the pasta area, which is protein pasta. So they were a game changer. Kudos to them. And I think that signature orange was a huge, huge factor. Lastly, having a unique packaging structure. Now, this doesn't have to be like a custom bottle. Obviously, that could be out of your budget sometimes. But even like we saw with Graza, boxed water, Liquid Death, the idea that they chose an uncommon packaging structure for the product at hand could be really cool. Again, the Alice chocolates wasn't so much there. So there's consideration that has to be taken into consideration for that one as well. So keep that in mind. But this idea that the signature structure is so identifiable from far away. It plays off the Coca-Cola bottle shape, that idea that it's iconic. So keeping that in mind, either with low budget or high budget, you can do this in any way. So these are some really good, well-crafted assets to consider as you build your brand. And this is straight from the retail buyers. Lastly, I asked them for some favorites. I wanted them to tell me what standouts were there. Let's just talk, overall. And they had some really cool ones. This one is a collaboration design between Foxtrot and Haywell, which is like a functional energy drink. And it was just this random collab, totally clashing design elements, right? You have this minimal spin from Haywell, and then you have this very interesting kind of sticker-based kind of vibe from Foxtrot. And for some weird reason, and the buyer couldn't even figure it out themselves, they just said it was the perfect combination, the perfect chemistry, and these collabs are really, really something unique to think about as well. That could be a whole conversation on its own. Next up, the David Bar. These done by my friends at Day Job, an incredible team, groundbreaking graphic design in all of their case study examples. And this one just, I don't know how you explain it and its kind of popularity. But number one, it's the product. This was done by the same guy that created the RX bars. This is like his second dip into the kind of world of protein bars and things. And his whole idea here was he made the ultimate macro, solution to a protein bar. Super high in protein, lower in calories, lower in sugar. But the guys at Day Job just did a fantastic job of kind of tapping into the David statue. It's like perfection, right? And this being perfected protein, all these things line up, and the name, the font choice, everything is just so bold and daring, and it is doing extremely well all over the place. Here's another surprise to me. I had never heard of this, but it was called the Not Fried Chicken Ice Cream. This is not chicken. This is ice cream, breaded in crushed cornflakes, sold in a little bucket. I love this product. It's like the dream client, right? I'm sure we can all agree. But the idea here, it carries all of the positive stuff and the do's that we've talked about in this whole presentation. Eye-catching, easy to understand, unique selling proposition, clarity throughout everything, personality in the font choices, in the cute little illustrations, but the fact that it's something so unconventional, and apparently it's done incredibly well at the 2 different retailers I talked to that sell this. Again, just one of those unexpected little treats, and well done. Another one here, Chai Baby. People were freaking out over this one for some reason. Again, the retailer had no kind of idea as to the success here. But when they made this little Chai Baby one, apparently the whole brand just took off. So maybe it was the idea here of like making a more portable, smaller, on-the-go thing of a favorite that was typically held in bigger sizes and in their refrigerator. Something about the mobility and the ease of this one just took off. But again, cute little design, great color choices, simple to see, easy to understand. We know what it is. Check, 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 right? It's working. Another surprise I'd never seen was this Sunlips orange wine. And again, super, super understandable of what it is. Has enough blend of kind of new and nostalgia and familiarity, right? Things there and a little bit of surprise. So another one too. Like I just love this one. It's not my design aesthetic, and I've never done anything in this zone, but I can super appreciate this vibe. Does it have longevity? Time will tell. But I think this was so neat to see one of the buyers call this one out as a really great example. Stop the press. This thing is the favorite thing I've seen in so long. And I'd never seen it before. One of the retail buyers brought this up. It's called Juice Runners. It's a Paloma remix. What a beautiful can design. But even better is just the photo styling of this one and all the richness and the blurred stuff in the background. I love this one. This is just absolutely beautiful. Apparently it was doing quite well with this one retailer in the craft spirits kind of area. And he wanted to mention this one as a formidable kind of like winner of the year. So I agree. I think it's got the perfect balance. Just beautiful. And lastly, this one as well. I'm so glad one of the retailers brought this up. It's called Dadgrass. It's a mild dose THC gummy. The idea here was that there was something about the vessel, this bottle and the cap, that reminded people of like old instant coffee containers from the past and maybe even the current, right? You know which brands I'm talking about. But there was something here by calling it Dadgrass, and I think you probably guys have seen like mom beer and some of these other things that are girl beer. I think it's what it's called. It's so funny that they're like pushing it to one demographic, but that just opens it up, I feel like, to everybody. But also too, there's a bit of exclusiveness here. This is like, a dad might grab this. Who knows? It's talking primarily to them. Their photography, their style, their brand extensions has now gone into leisure drink. I love the name that they're using. The copywriting on this stuff is so good. So again, thank you guys for so much for telling me some of these ones that were the real highlights and the ones that you wanted to call out. So to end this, how do you use this info? What could you do moving forward? Number one, look at your existing packaging designs, the things that you're doing. Look at them through the lens of a retail buyer. They have to make a big decision on, is this thing going to sell or not? Give them every advantage and opportunity to pick yours and the one you're working on with your client over anything else. That goes without saying. Secondly, does it communicate quickly? And that's a good point for us to be a little bit more subjective or objective with our kind of design work. We should be looking at it through the lens of someone else and asking, does it communicate quickly? We're the best judge of character on that. And if you can't, show it to somebody else. Show it to a trusted friend or family member. You never know if that's going to be something that they might bring up and be like, I just don't know what this is. You know, because you've been working on it. Third, is it shelf ready? That's another great thing to ask for. Size, scalability, size of the copy, right? Print this thing out. Put it on a vessel that's the same size. Put it at kind of arm's distance. How does it work? Is it easy to read? How will it do on the shelf? And last, does it stand out while still fitting in the industry? Best thing you can do is take a picture of the area that your brand or your client's brand is going to live in and see how it compares to the other brands that are in that space. Next up, think like a buyer, not a designer. Remember, buyers prioritize the confidence, the clarity, and the sales potential of what they're looking at. So think of it in that way, not just purely the aesthetics and like, this looks beautiful. Every design decision should align with the expectations of the consumer. And now we're filling in that blank of the retail buyer in between. Refine your presentation strategy. When you're pitching to clients or retailers, if you ever get that chance, Focus on how the design solves the problem for that particular person. It has to meet certain criteria, and you want to make sure it's not just about how it looks, but how it communicates. So throw that in, talk about it when you are presenting. They can't fight against data like this. They can't fight against a green or the font choice or whatever that might be. But what they can't fight about is the data and the knowledge and the expertise you're bringing when it comes to connecting with the consumer and now the retail buyer. Educate your clients. Here's something you can do. Use some of the stuff we've talked about today. Have that be part of the realities of your conversations with them. When you're making decisions on the packaging, when you're making decisions on the design, go back to some of this stuff and kind of use it as your kind of, leverage. This will work better if we do it this way. It's well informed and it's helping your client be more educated in that vibe. So if we can get them on our side and be understanding of all this value and insights, we're both going to win. Ask the right questions. There are so many different things that you can do. Where will this sit on shelves? We talked about that earlier. So identify that immediately. What competitive brands will it be next to? And what makes a buyer say yes? And I'm doing that with everything now. I'm literally looking at it through that lens. Will a buyer say yes? I don't want anything on there to confuse them or to maybe mislead them. Make sure you're checking all these boxes to make sure it really, really works. Well, guys, that's it. I hope you use this knowledge strategically. It's something great that you can do with both your client and hopefully have better chances when it meets and gets to that actual retail buyer. I hope this deep dive into the minds of these retail buyers gave you some new insight into your packaging design and how you can take it to that next level. And remember that the great design isn't just about looking good, it's about building confidence with the client, now the retail buyer, and eventually the consumer. Deeply graphic.